Okay, I'm calling the 247th meeting of the EPC to order. The following commissioners are present: Commissioner Reese, Commissioner Rice, and Commissioner Cabrera. I would like a motion on the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
So do I, yes.
You seconding?
I said,
All in favor, aye. Any abstentions? None. Okay, the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is a report on the status of the audits.
Well, so Sharice is not. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Okay, so right now we're doing the 2021 audit plan. We are 3/4 of the way through and issuing our preliminary determinations. We have about a quarter of our final determinations out, which means they're in compliance monitoring. The analysts are working really diligently, and I think we'll have a lot more compliance resolutions on the next agenda as a result of all of these finals that are going out now. There is also the leftover 2020 audit plan, but they're in compliance monitoring. There's about 13 agencies with the analysts to get them in compliance as soon as possible, and I do think that they will also contribute to an increased amount of compliance at the next meeting.
Okay. So we're on a schedule to at least finish 36 audits this year, if not more. Is that where you are?
So, I believe so. We're already up to 7, and I believe that by the next meeting, we might have an additional like 15.
You see?
Terrific. Terrific. Okay. And that would complete, is that going to complete all of our sexual harassment audits?
Yes,
So
it should, unless we have any follow-up audits that result from this year's audit plan.
You don't have to see me. You just
Agencies
have
not
to see me.
compliance.
okay, but so we really should be have completed that task as of the end of this year, 2021. As I understand it, our plan is to go through with a more targeted audit next year. Is that correct?
I believe so. I think in discussing with Sharice,
Can you
the
hear
next
me?
audit is not clear. Oh, Sharice, are you here?
Okay, they can finally hear me,
Yes.
Michael. I've been here for the entire meeting. It's just that no one could see or hear me.
Sharice, that is just so unlike you.
all right.
I couldn't figure out what happened. Michael just finally fixed something. I don't know what's going on, but I'm here.
Oh, okay.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
What's here? Hearing me is important.
Okay, so you can answer the question. The strategic plan is to have a more targeted audit once we have finished all the sexual harassment audits. Is that correct?
Yes, but here's the deal with the targeted, with having a targeted audit. So I considered going back to the employment practices audit, which is the audit where we look at selection, recruitment, and promotion. However, in the current, I guess, climate where there is scarcely any hiring going on, and we're not really sure about the state of promotions or recruitment because of the fiscal crisis. I think it would be, that type of audit would not be fruitful.
Okay,
So we have to discuss it, because what we could do is we can look at underutilization and we can try to come up with an audit that considers what groups may be underutilized for when hiring resumes, but we don't know when that will happen. And in the interim, maybe we can do something around separations. So
I think I hear you, but it seems to me that even in this climate where there is not going to be hiring, there will be a new mayor and a new city council. And I suggest there will still be movement within the city as to positions. So while there may not be particular recruitment, i.e., there will be new commissioners. The new commissioners will need new assistant commissioners. The assistant commissioners will be promoted probably from within. So while it may be seemingly static, I'm not sure it really will be static, Sharice.
But remember, an audit is retrospective. So we would be looking at 2020.
Right, which is frozen.
Right. So we can discuss it further, but you see the dilemma?
I do, but maybe you're right in looking at underutilization in preparation for remedying the underutilization. That may make more sense.
Right, and that would be aligned with local law 13 anyway, so, you know, we can further explore something like that. But it would be a very limited audit, very short, very precise.
So it would be targeted.
Right.
Okay. All right, I was
Yeah.
probing it because once you complete sexual harassment, which came about because of the climate, among other things, please note today's news with our governor. There continues to be a need for looking at the climate and dealing with the largest amount of employees in the city, i.e. city employees, and how to address what maladies may be occurring for them, with them, and to them.
Right.
Okay. What's next on the agenda, Jen?
There are 9 final determined resolutions up for a vote. Would you like me to read them?
Yes, I would.
Okay, Resolution 2021 AP 247, 345, 2021, Manhattan Community Board 5. Resolution 2021 AP 247, 347, 2021, Manhattan Community Board 7. Resolution 2021 AP 247, 350, 2021, Manhattan Community Board number 10. Resolution 2021 AP 247, 351, 2021, Manhattan Community Board number 11. Resolution 2021 AP 247, 352, 2021, Manhattan Community Board number 12. Resolution 2021 AP 247, 431, 2021, Queens Community Board number 1. Resolution 2021 AP 247, 437, 2021, Queens Community Board number 7. Resolution 2021 AP 247, 438, 2021, Queens Community Board number 8. And Resolution 2021 AP 247, 439, 2021, Community Board number 9. They are all final determined resolutions.
Okay, Arva, I would accept a motion to have them approved.
You're on mute, Commissioner Rice. You're back.
You know what? I'll move to have them all approved.
Second.
All in
Still
favor?
can't hear- You still can't hear me?
Now we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
They're all approved, Jen.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much in this dreadful time of COVID. Would you thank everybody for us?
I certainly will. I certainly will. They're all working very diligently.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda.
Is the compliance update. I spoke of this briefly. We have an additional 13 agencies from the 2020 audit plan that are still in compliance monitoring. We're working to get them moving along. They are wrapping up a few this month and over the next 2 months or so. So I would say by April, the end of April, we'll have most of them completed. And on today's agenda is 4 compliance resolutions for a vote. If you want me to read them, I can do that.
I certainly
Yes,
do.
yes.
Okay. Resolution 2020 AP 247, 841, 2021 C4, Department of Transportation. Resolution 2020 AP 247 820 2021 C5, Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings. Resolution 2020 AP 247 214 2021 C6, Office of Labor Relations. And Resolution 2020 AP 247 468 2021 C7, Hostos Community College.
Okay, I will entertain a vote, a resolution to approve. Arva,
I would like to make, you hear me? Okay, I would like to make a resolution. I would like to make a resolution to accept the presentation to accept the resolution as presented.
okay. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Jen, they're approved.
Okay,
Excellent job.
Commissioner, did you need to abstain from Hostos?
Yes, thank you.
I'll make a note.
That was my note to Sharice.
Yes,
And
Um,
Sharice's edification of the fact that as long as we were in session with a quorum, that 2 commissioners were sufficient to have it approved.
that is correct. The only thing that we have left is the research update. And I believe Letizia will be presenting that for us.
Is that the research dealing with local law 10? Is that what we're looking at?
Local Law
13.
13, as well as the results of our 2020 audit plan survey that we did not have time for at the last meeting.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Should my name be up here somewhere?
Yeah, it should be. No, it can't be up there.
Is Letizia online?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So Letizia will do a brief presentation before we go into executive session. Letizia, you have the floor.
Thank you. Michael, can you afford me the opportunity to share my screen?
Why should my name be there?
No,
Why?
because it's your participant and panelist based on the computer.
We can just move forward in the interest of time, Letizia, because I understand that Commissioner Wright needs to leave early. So if we can move forward in the interest of time.
Okay, so I'm not able to share my screen, but I will still go through the presentation to share the information that's here. So certainly, thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on where we are with regards to 2 projects, Local Law 13 and the How Did We Do survey feedback. We've termed this report the 2021 Racial and Ethnic Classification Report. So I'm going to start off in talking about some of the efforts that we undertook to provide some meaningful insights on underutilization. The law dictated that we were to look at our entire universe of corrective actions. And of course I did that, but I'm going to start off by talking a bit about what's been going on for the past 10 years and looking at corrective actions related to mayoral versus non-mayoral entities. So we wanted to see, is there a difference in how these 2 groups have been issued corrective actions relative to underutilization? So over the past 10 years.
Letitia, excuse me for a minute. Could you send copies of the report to all the commissioners, and could you do it by mail to Commissioner Cabrera?
Yes, I will.
Send
Yes, I
her a
will.
hard copy by mail.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I will.
Continue.
So the mayoral entities were most often cited for failing to properly assess their selection methods. And the non-mayoral entities were most often cited for the hiring manager not conducting an annual review of its EEO practices. So again, that just provides for us an overview of how the 2 populations over the past decade have been issued corrective actions relative to underutilization. I also wanted to look across the universe to see how do we assess, or what's the biggest gap across protected classes. So when I'm talking about gap, I'm looking at those the labor statistics that dictate by racial category the number that were expected to be employed versus those that were actually employed. So in looking at the groups with the largest underutilization, then looking at the entities with the largest gap, they are as follows: the police department, the
Ah,
department,
what a surprise. What a
yes,
surprise.
right, the Department of Education, the Fire Department, Department of Parks and Recreation, and NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority. So at the same time, we also wanted to look at job groups, as that's what Local Law 13 challenges us to do. The job groups with the biggest gap are police and detectives, craft, health professionals, technicians, and guards. So we also wanted to do a parallel analysis for the community, community colleges. And when we look at the gap across protected
Excuse me for a
classes,
minute. When you say the gap, are you looking at the hiring, the gap in underutilization of minorities or minorities and women? And is there a difference between women and minorities?
so we're looking, our Local Law 13 dictates that we look at racial and ethnic classifications. It does not authorize us to assess gender. So this data really centers on racial and ethnic categories.
Thank you.
Mhm. So in looking at the gap across community colleges, Kingsborough, Hostos, Queensborough, Bronx, and BMCC had the largest gap. And then when we looked at the job groups, it was the administrative assistants, accountant, professionals, CPO sergeant, skilled trades, and basic crafts. So again, this gave me the opportunity, or us the opportunity, to look at expected versus employed as it relates to underutilization.
It seems to me that in doing your report, you're going to have to disclose that you have no capacity to look at the professional, the teachers and the academics, so that when your finding is only of those that you were enabled to investigate. I put that in because otherwise I think it's somewhat misleading. It looks as though the professors are fine and they're not, but we don't know that.
Okay, duly noted, duly noted. So again, as I shared, I was tasked with looking at the entire universe of our corrective actions that were issued, and the time frame was 1997 to 2019. So we wanted to know what were the biggest issues that presented. And in looking at that entire universe of corrective actions, they centered around these top 5: assess recruitment, train hiring managers in EEO methods, assess their selection methods, train their EEO professionals, and appoint a career counselor. So when we look back over this past period, these are the top issues that have emerged as it relates to the corrective actions that were issued by the EEPC. When we looked at the entities that have received the most corrective actions over the same period, which is 1997 to 2019, I'm going to share with you the entities that have had the most issues over that time period. I'm going to start off with, the entity that had the most was the Landmarks Preservation Commission, with 19 corrective actions being administered over that period. Next, at 18, it was tied between 3 entities: the Department of City Planning, the Department of Investigation, and the Department of Records and Information Services. In the 3rd place was the Office of Management and Budget at 17. corrective actions, and then the district attorney office in Queens, 16 corrective actions over that period. And then the New York City Employees Retirement System and Office of Labor Relations were tied at 15. So I went a little bit further to see, as I shared with you, the top issues that have been shared, that have been cited over this 1997 to 2019 timeframe. I also looked to see how did these entities fare as it relates to being cited with those top issues. So Landmarks Preservation Commission, of the 19 corrective actions that were issued, 53% of them dealt with issues that could address underutilization.
Right.
The Department of City Planning, DOI, and Doris, 72%, 72%, 56% respectively. When I looked at OMB, 53% of them dealt with those issues. District Attorney at Queens, 50% of them dealt with issues related to underutilization. New York City Employees Retirement System, 60% of them dealt with those issues. In the office, OLR, 73% of them. So it gives an idea of, you know, what these issues, what these entities have, you know, have had the most issues with over this historical period.
I have another question. Have you seen, while you're looking at it, have you seen a pattern of it getting better over this period of time, or does it continue to be the same percentage from over this 15-year period?
So I think the best way for me to, there really have been ebbs and flows. You know, some entities have, you know, really grabbed the reins, you know, grabbed this issue by the reins, and have really put forth some efforts to advance equitable hiring practices. And that really is the segue of what I'm going to talk about next. And then there are others that, you know, that are continuing to, you know, with all of their competing priorities, still, you know, having some issues in addressing
Underutilization.
advancing, right, correct.
Okay.
So I'm now going to segue into who the front runners are, which, you know, really gave us an opportunity to dig in and think about the work that these entities have engaged in. So I'm going to talk about some of the front runners, and we actually went through the process of looking at how each of the entities have engaged in addressing corrective actions that were issued previously. We reviewed all of the annual plans of the entities, and we also reviewed the quarterly reports where applicable of each entity to really give us an idea as it relates to what these entities have done to advance equitable hiring practices. So in looking at the entities, our biggest front runners, at the top of the list is the Campaign Finance Board, DCAS, New York City Housing Authority, the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings, the Office of Payroll Administration, then Gutman Community College and Kingsborough Community College. And basically what this group has done, when we look at what we consider to be best practices, they've engaged in each of the best practices that we've recommended to really advance equitable hiring practices. So, you know, it really has been insightful in, you know, looking at how these entities have responded and really demonstrating what the entities have done as it relates to advancing equitable hiring practices. So, with that being said, I want to talk just a little bit about some of the challenges that presented in developing the report. It certainly has been myself and the research specialist that offers assistance. So our first challenge was there was a delay in the receipt of information from MODA. We got that information in October. And then a lack of resources. As you all know, there were quite a bit of efforts undertaken to try to get some additional support to respond to Local Law 13. But given our financial situation, financial climate, we had to restructure and redesign the report so that we could provide some meaningful information, but at the same time, figuring out the best way to provide this information. So we've developed an iterative report plan that allows us over the 10 years to offer some additional insights as it relates to underutilization in New York City entities. So this is where we are. I feel that we're very close to having a final product, but wanted to share with you where we are at present.
So what this is, excuse my shooting from the hip analysis, but what this is a baseline report for over this period of time that we have been doing audits. And so we've got a historical baseline, and now I guess this report's due either annually or biannually. Is it annually?
It's due annually.
It's due annually. So this becomes your baseline upon which you build the improvement and upon which you can see whether or not there has been any improvement. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So theoretically, you can all kick me under the virtual table. It should be easier to do since all you will have to do analytically is 1 year.
Well,
You're kicking the table.
So if I can share, so this establishes the baseline. And if you look at Local Law 13, there are several points that the law dictates that we are to respond to, including providing recommendations and budgets. And some of the requests really requires us to reach out to the entities to collect additional data so that we can establish a new foundation by which to collect this information. For instance, the Local Law 13 asks us to assess whether or not the racial ethnic classifications that we have appropriately describe the New York City population. So that will then, give us an opportunity to consider what our classifications are and how we should best address those classifications. So it's not just, this is the baseline, but again, the requirements of the report do challenge us to drill down deeper. And in some instances, we will have to go back out to the entities to ask for new information so that we can provide the most meaningful information when it comes to developing recommendations to the mayor and speaker of the council on how best to address this underutilization issue that's presenting.
Well, I think I'm going to sound like a feminist, which is not normally my manner of speaking, but it seems to me that this is an enormous gap in not looking at gender. And I really mean that. So if you go into city planning and you trying to find a female architect, you're going to have to look far and wide, because there still aren't a whole lot of female architects. If you go into looking at construction authority and you try finding a female engineer, or a construction engineer, it's very difficult to find them. We discovered this, Sharice, you will remember, in Department of Buildings. We tried looking at the bridges and looking at whether or not there were any painters that could paint the bridge, and there weren't any painters because they weren't coming out of the unions.
I think that was Department of Transportation.
Okay, it was Department. Thank you, Sharisa. But it seems to me that, and I would look at since the local law 13 is not looking at that, that's an enormous, enormous fault.
Mhm.
Because if you're looking at underutilization, it is not only underutilization of minorities, but the underutilization of women.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So I don't know. I think you have to, if you have to create something to look at that, it seems to me, and looking at the population within the city of New York, you ought to be looking at, I think we are, the dominant majority is female.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And so if we're not looking at it in that manner, I think we're not doing a service. Anyway,
Mhm.
I'm going to get off my podium at this point.
We do a service regardless. We look at issues in the audits and we look at females and minorities in our audit. And then we have another mandate to respond to local law 13. Yes, there can be a comprehensive report at some point that has to do with gender, but those issues are currently addressed in the EPC's audit.
I know you are addressing it. I understand that, but to the extent that that is not a requirement of this report, I think we ought to go back in and add it in.
Yeah.
Because I think, and I don't suggest that you do it for the baseline, but maybe you should, but I certainly think you have to do it going forward, because otherwise it's an unrealistic analysis.
Okay.
Sharice?
At this point, I hear what you're saying, and we'll go back and we'll see how difficult that is.
No, I'm not asking you to do it for the baseline. I really.
But what I think the way to address that is to go back to the council.
Yep.
And go back to the council members that authored the bill and actually speak with them about it and say that this is an important issue. And I think we even said it in our testimony, but I think that's the place to address it.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Do you want to, does someone want to author a letter from USUMS saying, having done the analytical work and having completed it, we have discovered there is a huge gap?
Well, we can't say that we've discovered that there's a huge gap if we haven't been doing the analysis alongside the racial gap, because we've been doing the bare minimum requirements because of how much staff we've had. So we can find a way to go back to the data, and at that point, when we have more, more predicated information, then we'll have the information to then author a letter to the council. But
Okay.
I don't know if that can happen right now while we're trying to meet our deadline we passed the deadline. But
No, you passed it. I understand. I'm not asking it.
So yes, I do.
But I do think it's a huge problem, because you're really, you're not refining the underutilization well enough. It's a refinement issue. So that you're dealing with minorities as generic as opposed to male, female, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that's a failing. And it's particularly, we know it's a failing as to the fire department. We know it's a failing as to the police department. We know that is a given because of our history in dealing. We know where the problems are. Now, it may well be a failing elsewhere. As I stated, we also know it's a failing in some of the trades, because there aren't a whole lot of women in the trades. So that's another failing, and therefore there aren't women who can be promoted, because if I can't start out as at the basic level, I can't be promoted beyond that. So it's a problem.
Well, what I think is that before we say that it's a problem, I think we can go back to our audits, go back to the historical information at some point in the future, and possibly use some of the recommendations that we've made in that regard to then
Create a new baseline.
Right.
Yeah.
Or right to, I think we should
it should be an issue that we should address to the council and probably the Committee on Women, and the Committee on Civil Rights, which is the committee that this bill comes out of, that this local law comes out of. So, yes, I think the appropriate place is for us to go back to the council and address it there. And how.
Yes. It could just be an oversight. That was very tongue in cheek. If you saw me, if I was in the room, you'd know what I meant. Anyway.
Okay.
But, yes, so we'll explore that in the future. But Letizia, can you briefly cover the survey so that we can go into executive session?
Yes, I can. Quickly, we at the end of last year, we sent out a survey feedback, an audit feedback survey. And of the 34 entities that were audited last year, we received 26 responses. 25 of them were complete. So we were very pleased that the entities were provided for us meaningful information. We got a participation rate of about 77%. And that's much higher than the national average, which is about 33%. Overall, we earned a score of 84% average for the total number of responses that our entities rated us excellent, good, or satisfactory. So we're very pleased about that. We think it's certainly a good point of departure, but all feedback is good feedback because it will allow us to better serve our entities. When we looked at how did we do overall, I want to talk about the top rated areas of performance. So professionalism of the audit team, our entities thought that we did very well. The timeliness of response to their inquiries, our entities thought that we did very well. And then instructions to provide aid with follow-up action or compliance monitoring after receiving corrective actions. So again, these are how our customers felt that we did as it relates to conducting the audits. The topics for the audit includes the following: relevance of response to your inquiries or concerns, consideration of entity-related nuances when writing findings and determinations, instructions provided to aid with follow-up actions or compliance monitoring after receiving corrective actions, professionalism of the audit team, collaboration between your entity and the EEPC team, general usefulness of the corrective actions, and ease of utilizing the Team Central Audit Compliance Monitoring System. So our efforts were to really get some good feedback on the scope of the audits in which we conducted. So all of the feedback is good feedback, and it has been shared with Jen and of course Sharice, and we'll look at how we can use the information to improve the manner in which we do our business.
Did anybody indicate that there was an area for improvement? And if so, did they articulate what they were talking about?
So yes, we did receive some information on things that we can do to enhance the manner in which we conduct surveys. We asked them at the end of the survey, you know, was there anything that we missed? They offered some questions on how to offer some feedback on how to better improve our services. So yes, I do have information on that.
Would you send just that part to me?
Right. I think that information we share internally, and we can share it with the commissioners, and we double back with staff, and we explore certain issues. We also look at some of the information that we've gotten for feedback. We point them back to, okay, if you check that we need improvement, and this was a very small group because we got, like she said, overall an 84%. But if we need improvement, then what is it that you recommend that we improve in?
So it directly speaks to that. Now, some of that, we look back and we say, okay, where is this coming from and what happened in the audit? Some of it may just be that, you know, people, some of it may not be something that we can act on. Let's just put it that way. And then there are things where we can actually improve. So we will send it to the commissioners and we've been discussing with staff on ways that we can improve certain things, especially related to the interactive experience with the agencies. So, you know,
Sharice,
so
I'm
we will send that
curious as to
information.
I'm curious as to whether the needs improvement is technologically driven, i.e. they found that the manner of dealing with it or responding to it was difficult. I'm just curious as to where the area of needs improvement is. That's all.
Right. So we definitely will send it to the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
We have a presentation and we have all of the results in the survey. So we'll send it to the commissioners and then we can discuss that stuff internally.
Fine. Okay.
That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the hard work.
Yeah.
And it would prove very interesting. And the analysis was very interesting to me, and I'm sure it was to the other commissioners as well.
definitely.
And we look forward to reading it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay, let's go into executive session.